We are slaying monsters.
Don't let the ghosts and the ghouls disturb you, darling.
You know that old adage goes something like, you can't make an omelet without psionically controlling some spaceships? You know that adage?
Oh yeah. I think Orson Welles came up with that.
Was it? Yeah.
And originally, yeah.
Yeah, when he was in his kitchen and he was cooking up some eggs and
either that or Martha Stewart. I can't.
Oh yeah, Martha Stewart, of course, was very much into psionically controlling UAPs.
100%.
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
we're starting with the misinformation nice and early.
Oh man, we're getting into it today. It's just.
I mean, how do you think Martha Stewart took over in the 1970s? If it wasn't for psionics.
Influence from the aliens.
Exactly.
Right? She brought the aliens down in the 1970s. We had a little dip in UFOs in the 1970s. Yeah. You know, they were hot in the 60s, a little dip in the 70s. That's when they were helping Martha Stewart launch her career. And then boom, they were back in the 80s. Back in the 80s. That's when Roswell came in.
I feel like Ancient Aliens has really missed the mark in not having a whole season about influencers that aliens have helped.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
That's probably an entire show, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, we could do an entire show just on the influencers who have helped. Well, they already say Da Vinci, right? But that's like getting way back in time.
The early Egyptian kings definitely couldn't have come up with those pyramids on their own. All those engineers and
you know this, right,
Ancient
Katie?
Aliens, didn't they even suggest one time that like the Egyptian kings were aliens themselves because of the representations in the hieroglyphs and things? Their face shape was like very particular. And so, you know, instead of just assuming that it was a caricature of a person, they decided that that's actually what they looked like and that they were aliens. I'm pretty sure that's the argument they made at some point.
Oh, yeah, I think
they have made a lot of arguments. One of my favorite parts of Ancient Aliens is that they always assume that the artists are like you know, the people who are doing these drawings and paintings and stuff are really, really good artists, not just like shitty artists. Because I'm a terrible artist. And so when I try to draw human beings, they look like aliens. They look like little lumpy sacks of potatoes. Like, they're terrible. And anyone who looked at that would be like, that's not a person. They're obviously a whole bunch of ovals, like some type of alien being that came to Earth.
Yeah.
The other thing they always assume is that there's never, like, you know, metaphor in art. That they were literally drawing what they which was a being flying through the sky on a saucer.
Yeah. We've talked about this before, but it's so funny to me that we have, like the Avengers, right? We have the Avengers. We have Nosferatu. We have all of this stuff now that is not based on anything, right? We're like, yeah, guy builds an iron suit and can shoot lasers out of his hands. But 200 years ago, they couldn't make that up. You know, 2,000 years ago, they didn't have the imagination for that, right?
No, they had
never seen flying creatures. Birds didn't exist.
Right, exactly.
Oh, that's a whole other one.
I know.
Oh, God. No.
You know that was debunked. That guy who came up with the whole, like, birds are government psyop, he literally was playing a huge, like, practical joke, like Borat-style practical joke on everyone.
Oh, my God.
I never knew that, really? Because that got way out of hand.
I listened to an interview with him. I'll have to track it down and I'll send it to you. He literally was just a college student who was like, let me make up a ridiculous thing and like see if it catches on. And it did. And then he just like went with it and kept talking about it. But yeah, it was just like a long performance art piece, essentially. What's really funny is the interview, I'd love to hear y'all's take on it, but like the guy is not, like, he's clearly not like actually a comedian performance art thing. He's clearly like a dude who started something and then was like, well, shit, okay, like I'm just gonna see how long I can keep doing this. And now in the interview he was like trying to talk about it a little bit more philosophically, and I was like, you are not cut out for this, dude. Like, you sound like you were just a frat bro and you pulled a joke that got out of hand.
Sometimes that happens.
man.
We talked about that with the Minnesota Iceman. So basically there was this guy who had a Bigfoot that was encased in ice that he was like taking around to different festivals and world and fairs and stuff and showing it off. And then the top 2 cryptozoologists in the world found out and showed up at this dude's door and spent like 4 days investigating the thing. And they bought into it, like he fooled them. And then he had to keep doubling down and keep pretending that it was real. And then they were like, we have to take this away from you. And he got worried and he was like, oh no, you know, and they were going to get the FBI involved and stuff. And it was crazy. Like the whole story is crazy. Check out our Minnesota Iceman series for more information on that. But like that was one of those where it was just something that he was doing on the side to make a little bit of money, and it got blown way out of proportion. And then he just had to like let it drag him along the whole time.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the bird story is a barometer for how we all think, how well we all think. If we had measured that reaction, we would have been able to call the election.
Probably.
Like if we had connected those things, I think we would have had a better idea what was going to happen, because that took off and this should not have taken off. And I got people in my family that believed that, by the way.
Oh really?
Yes.
Oh wow.
They will not be named, but it was a conversation. So
I had heard about it like very peripherally as like a funny thing. I think like on the late night like comedy shows. And then Jack Osborne had like a new show where he was like watching videos with, I think, the Ghost Brothers. I'm forgetting exactly. But when I told you I've watched every paranormal show that exists, I have. But they were watching different videos, and they had the bird guy on. Like, they were bringing, like, weird clips, and one of the Ghost Brothers brought, like, birds are a psyop to the show for them to examine. And, of course, they all thought it was ridiculous, but he brought the guy on to, like, talk about it. This is before I knew that it was, like, a long con.
wow.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'm glad they thought it was bullshit. Good for Jack, I guess.
I mean, I
That's good.
think even the guy that brought it thought it was bullshit, but the whole point of it is it was kind of like that show was like kind of like a game. Like they were all trying to one up each other with like the most crazy,
Cool.
paranormal or like conspiracy theory thing.
Cool. That sounds cool.
That's great.
Yeah. Matt, what does this have to do with any... Oh, by the way, that we're slaying monsters. Matt's pointing at me like, introduce us. I'm like, yeah, sorry. Okay. We're slaying monsters. We got Maddie J.
Yo.
We got Katie.
Hello.
Katie, welcome back. Welcome back to
Welcome
the
back,
podcast.
Katie. And I'm EJ.
Yeah.
And what the hell are you talking about psyops for?
Oh my God. So yeah. Should we start with the egg?
Sure.
We should start with the egg, I think, because this is this is sort of big news. This is big news for a very select set of the population. And I watched this when you were gone, EJ. This was just me like alone in the house watching this interview with this dude. But there's a new whistleblower who came forward who claims that he has actually recovered a UAP. And according to an exclusive News Nation spot, his name is Jacob Barber, and he has worked for 30 years for the U.S. government on a UAP recovery program. Now, these we've talked about before. These were the programs that David Grush brought to light way back in 2023, and Louis Elizondo talked about in his book Imminent, released last fall. Both of these guys, like, they only talked about the programs. They were aware of them existing, but they were not involved in them directly. Jacob Barber claims to have actually been involved in one and actually recovered several UAPs during his time. Now, post 9/11, he served as a helicopter pilot, and he and his team were assigned to retrieve crashed aircrafts from an undisclosed location in the desert. And during one of these missions, he saw his first UAP. And this is the one that everybody's calling, like, the egg, right?
Yeah. But is this the footage that he sent then? Is this what you're referring to?
Well, no. So News Nation showed footage of it's like night vision. It's all green. It wasn't footage from his recovery. It was obtained independently.
Oh, so and that was an anonymous sender, right?
I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
It showed what they claimed is an egg craft, and Barber describes it as, I saw an egg, a white egg. There was no engine. There was no thermal signature. I was operating at night when I finally came to pick it up. So I'm working under night vision goggles at the time, and it was quite clear. We all knew we were dealing with something extraordinary. He said it was this like UAP, shaped like an egg, no markings, nothing, completely smooth. The video that News Nation showed is, I guess, an egg suspended from what they claim is a 150-foot cable being lowered onto what they claim is the ground. Mm-hmm. But there's no size references at all, and it looks an awful lot like an egg wrapped in a napkin being set down on carpet. That's what it looks like to me, at least.
You know, it made me think of the AstroTurf that you see in a lot of South Philly porches. Like that nice green AstroTurf.
My grandma had that.
Yeah, that lovely AstroTurf. It made me think of that, personally.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looked. I mean, there's no reference.
Yeah. This whole story, like, first off, the whole top part of it, I was like, okay, cool. This guy worked for the government on top secret military programs, aerial programs, obviously, research, whatever. And then he gets into like the second piece of it. And I was just like, okay, this is where you're starting to lose me. Because even the egg, he says many, many times that the recovery people did not know what they were going to recover. They were not told anything about anything that they were going to recover. They were just told, go to this place, pick up this thing. Or here's this box, take it to this other place. Okay, maybe the US government has a weird egg thing that they're experimenting with making. Like things that change color, things that change shape. This all sounds like incredibly normal to me. Not normal in that it's like things that we have familiarity with, but like normal in that I could totally see the US government trying to create an aircraft that could change color. Like that would be super convenient, you know?
Yeah.
Or like an aircraft that doesn't have a heat signature. That would be super convenient. I mean, I just like, sorry, dude, like you were not told what you were looking at. So it probably did seem pretty exotic to you, but like that doesn't mean that the US government isn't making it. Like I don't want to rain on anyone's parade, but that was my takeaway.
That's such a good point.
My takeaway was that, you know what looks an awful lot like an egg? A balloon. A lot like that Chinese spy balloon. You remember the Chinese spy balloon that was floating across the US in early 2023? Mm-hmm. You know? It looked an awful lot like that. They're just white ovals, you know? Mm-hmm. Doesn't it make sense that they would send you to pick up a surveillance balloon? You know, that's where I would have gone with it, not some extraterrestrial craft, right?
Yeah, and the less you know, the better. Because what if it is a foreign spy balloon that you're picking up? They're not going to tell you what it is because they don't want you messing with it. I think that any of these scenarios are way more reasonable than an alien egg, personally.
Now, I don't think that he thinks that the egg is like a chicken egg for an alien.
No, I don't think so
Yeah,
either.
okay, yeah. He thinks it's a craft.
Yeah, sorry, an alien egg-shaped craft.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did think it was a little odd, like the radiation with the box. Like he clearly suffered from major injuries. And I did believe him that if the people asking him to take the box had known that there was radiation in it, that there are like protocols for that. I absolutely believe that would be true. Like that makes a lot of sense. Why would they expose people to radiation like needlessly? I don't think they would, especially at that high of levels. But again, that could have been just a fuck up in communication.
Totally. Yeah.
Not that there was something in there that people didn't realize was emitting that high levels of radiation. Or maybe they didn't.
Maybe it didn't, and maybe we don't know what happened directly before or after when it came to missions that could have exposed any of these people to high levels of radiation. We don't have all the data around that.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't the box. Maybe it was you're flying around in the desert on like top secret military bases. Maybe you accidentally got exposed to radiation somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe there was a test that went down near you.
Don't we also bury nuclear nuclear stuff in the desert somewhere? Isn't that one of the things we take it out to the middle of nowhere in Nevada and bury it? Nuclear radioactive material.
I don't know where we bury it, but I know that we bury radioactive waste, which is a beautiful little gift for future generations of humans that are going to have to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, we love kicking cans down the road.
There are more than 75 nuclear waste dump sites in 35 states.
Lovely.
The psionic piece of this, I want to get into that.
Oh yeah. So let's get into that. So Barber, his experiences with these egg-shaped craft, and then there was another one that he called the 8-gon, encouraged him to launch this privately funded group called Skywatcher HQ. And it's never disclosed where their funding has come from, but they've already started operations by psionically contacting UFOs. So according to him, during August of 2024, his team recruited an unnamed psionic asset from the US government who psychically summoned one of these egg-shaped UFOs. And while holding that mental connection with the craft, another UFO showed up, this one not controlled by anyone they knew. And then allegedly the two crafts engaged in a dogfight in the night sky before the psionic person had to sever the connection. Katie, what do you think about that?
That was the part where I started losing the narrative thread. And oddly, it is not that there are secret government programs where people with reportedly psionic powers, or they're training people to try to see if they have psionic powers. That's not the part where you lose me. The part where you lose me is like the whole story, because there's too many pieces. Like, it's one thing to say that you have the psionic asset and that they're trying to contact a UAP. Okay, fine. Then you say they actually made contact. I'm struggling a little bit here, but okay, cool. Then there's like a dogfight with another one that shows up. I'm like, now you're just writing your own science fiction novel, and props to you, and that's cool. But you've gone off the edge for me, because I just don't, like, where's the proof? You haven't given me enough to make me think that any of what you're saying is true, or that you are not imagining it because you've seen too much weird shit in your life, and now you maybe think that you've decided that more weird shit is possible, like even weirder shit that you haven't seen. I don't know. That's where I go with it, and maybe that's unfair to Jacob, but
I don't think it's unfair to ask for evidence, personally.
No, and it's never unfair to ask for evidence.
Good point. And I think I'm sorry, I don't know who said this, but extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof.
Right. I don't know who said that. I've heard it a lot.
And I'm probably misquoting it too. But it's true. And so the more you want to go down that funny rabbit hole of stories, you're going to have to give us proof.
Katie, are you familiar with Project Stargate?
I think so. I think they talk about it on Ghost Adventures once. But when they went to Skinwalker Ranch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same one?
Yep. Yeah. Let me give you a quick rundown, because the U.S. government did study psionics and psychically controlled individuals for a time, and it's on record. It's documented.
Yeah, the men who stare at goats.
The Men Who Stare at Goats. Exactly. John Ronson's book. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Sirhan, who assassinated RFK, I think was also at one point part of that, or people think he might have been a part of it. Anyway, keep going.
Yes. So the vast majority of this Project Stargate centered around remote viewing. This idea that you can psychically project yourself to another place, or psychically communicate and interface with other beings. So if you follow the threads of all of this, it was the research of a man named Hal Puthoff, who served as the director on this project. Now, Puthoff claimed to have tested the psychic powers of selected individuals, including known grifter Uri Geller. Katie, are you familiar with Uri Geller?
No.
The magician who said he could bend spoons. This is a fascinating little dive. So he was a magician who claimed that he had psychic powers and that he could bend spoons and do a bunch of other things. And he was on Johnny Carson, and Johnny Carson invited James Randi, who was another magician. You might be familiar with James Randi. He's a magician. He's a skeptic. And James Randi would not let Uri Geller use the spoons that he brought. James Randi had a whole set of stuff laid out for him. And they were all of a particular metal that you couldn't just bend them in your hands and anything like that. And for the entire episode of Carson, Uri Geller did nothing but like stare at these spoons and then be like, I'm feeling very weak today.
I think it's still available.
Oh yeah, it's on YouTube. You can find it. It's incredible.
It's really good.
It's incredible. But this dude ended up with Hal Puthoff in the US government and was like, oh, I have psychic powers. If you want to study psychics, you should study me, right? He claimed during these tests he could travel through time, he could talk to aliens, other kind of outrageous stuff, right? So what they did, Puthoff took Uri Geller, locked him in a room, and said, all right, we're going to have somebody write down a word in another room, and we want you to draw what that word is when you psychically connect to this guy. He failed pretty much every single time. And one of the most hilarious, my favorite, I swear I'm not making this up, the word was fuse. They said, all right, draw what, psychically connect with this guy, draw what he's saying, and the guy said fuse, okay? Geller, using his quote-unquote psychic powers, drew an egg-shaped man with a gun, a snare drum, and a hobby horse. And they considered that successful. Successful. They were like, oh, whoa, you got it. I can't believe it.
Why?
I don't know. because of the like crash on the drums, and then the hobby horse was like the right size for the fuse.
Boy.
And stuff. I don't know.
Oh my God,
it was
give me a
all
break.
of this special pleading, right? So the U.S. government sunk $10 million into this project over like 20 years, right? And a decent chunk of that money was earmarked to be paid to these psionically talented individuals who were just fucking mad magicians and mentalists. Because what they didn't realize they were doing is they were recruiting magicians who could do magic tricks. The magicians would do magic tricks for the CIA, and the CIA was like, oh my God, psychic powers are real. So
And you said they were being paid?
they were being paid.
Well, why would they lose this opportunity? They got to keep the grift going.
Yeah.
They got to, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the biggest magic show they've ever done.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So eventually the US government tapped this psychology professor named Ray Hyman and said, we want you to come in and evaluate the project, evaluate Uri Geller. Hyman observed the tests and he wrote up a report and called Geller a complete fraud. And he said, psychologists such as myself who study subjective validation find nothing striking or surprising in the reported matching reports against targets in the Stargate data. The overwhelming amount of data generated by viewers is vague, general, and way off target. The few apparent hits are just what we would expect if nothing other than reasonable guessing and subjective validation are operating. Basically, sometimes you get something right just out of sheer luck of the draw, right? You throw a whole bunch of shit at the wall, some of it probably going to make an outline of a fuse.
Yeah, sure.
Especially if the guy who's looking at the shit is looking for one, which is something we talk about all the time. The frame that you come in with informs what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So eventually the project was terminated in 1995. Puthoff lost his job. Puthoff fell in with Robert Bigelow, and then the rest of that story is a whole other great big history. And Bigelow, of course, bought Skinwalker Ranch, and then we go down that hole. And that's where you know this Project Stargate from, Katie, from that Skinwalker Ranch episode. In terms of remote viewing, David Marks of the British Psychical Society wrote a landmark paper researching it in 1982 and said, well-controlled experiments never find the remote viewing effect, while poorly controlled experiments nearly always do. Data suppression, flawed methodology, and a lack of replication lead to the conclusion that remote viewing is a cognitive illusion, an artifact of human error and wishful thinking.
Deja vu.
Exactly. It's what you're looking for, right? Like what you're looking for is what gets brought there. But the problem is a lot of that research and the stories about it never really died. Like the project ended in 1995. It was all terminated, but they still would talk about it, you know? And there were still the people who were reading the old reports and all of that and learning about it. And these credulous individuals, like, unfortunately, I think Jake Barber, kind of get caught up in that mythology without really understanding the history and the bullshit that comes along with it, you know? Because you just read, oh, the government spent $10 million to do psychic research and then the project was shuttered. Well, what happened to the people who were working on it? What's going on? What, did it actually get shut down or did it just go underground? You know, is there now a secret branch of the US government doing it? And that's how we end up in these situations.
It's important to know the history of things.
Yeah.
The part of that that's strange to me is that people think, oh, did it go underground? What happened to these people? Instead of thinking the government spent $10 million on something, they did try, it didn't pan out, so they stopped spending money on it. There has to be something more there. I think people are so bad at admitting failure that they just want to make up some other reason for why a program shut down. It can't just be that it didn't work. It's not real.
Yeah, and it's boring, and it's kind of disappointing. And isn't it more exciting to think that it's just underground? It got too good. It got too good for anybody to find out about, so it had to be moved to like top secret. And
then I think the other part of this too is that there were all these rumors, because we're talking Cold War, right? Mm-hmm. So there's all these rumors as well that like, oh, Russia's developing psionic agents, China's developing psionic agents, North Korea, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't want to be left behind in what is essentially now like a super weapon development, or at least super surveillance. So we project that we have it the same way that Russia's projecting they have it. And then it's all this game of misinformation combating each other.
Yeah, I will admit that I have never read or seen the Manchurian Candidate, but isn't that the whole premise of it? It's an elected official that is controlled by a foreign government through one of these like psionic programs.
Yeah, any of that, like you have the mental trigger in your brain and all they have to do is say that particular code phrase and all of a sudden, boom, you're a Russian asset or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, that they could completely wipe people's minds and stuff. And also, I mean, a lot of this was wrapped up in MK Ultra too, where the government was doing. Katie, do you know about MK Ultra?
I don't.
Oh, we're taking you down rabbit holes today.
I love it. Go brief on MK Ultra.
Well, so
it's a deep one.
But the long and short of MK Ultra was the government. It was sort of tangentially connected to Stargate, and it was like a big part of it was the government was experimenting with LSD and what LSD could it be used for good, for bad, whatever.
Oh, okay.
And so
you've probably heard about this,
part
Katie,
of this,
but maybe not the name of it.
Yeah, part of this involved dosing people with LSD without telling them, and ended with one guy actually committing suicide, jumping off a balcony because he was high out of his mind. So, like, yeah. I mean, there was crazy ass shit going on. It was like the Wild West in the CIA.
And wasn't sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Wasn't Ted Kaczynski part of MK Ultra?
I had heard that. I don't know if that's a rumor or if that's a fact.
Okay,
but
all right.
Yeah.
Sorry to bring that up. If it's conspiracy theory.
I've definitely heard that Ted Kaczynski was connected to MK Ultra in some fashion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I did not know that, but I immediately thought of Timothy Leary was involved in like legitimate LSD research at Harvard or Yale in the 60s. I mean, that was the whole thing, that he was like the counter to like Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters because they were just like spiking Kool-Aid at parties and seeing what happened. But like Tim Leary was actually, I'm forgetting, so this might be wrong, but I think he was like a professor, and so he was part of research or something. But yeah, he was involved in like LSD research. And so maybe it was part of that program, but I did know that they were doing like legitimate LSD research back in the day.
Yeah, there was a dude who worked for MK Ultra. They gave him the nickname Poisoner in Chief because he was doing just that. He would just like show up at parties and drop some in your wine and be like, "Hey, there you go. You're good. You're fine. Let's see what happens."
We've gone massively off track.
Yes, we really, really have. We've got to steer this alien egg-shaped ship back.
Getting back. So anyway, this is also, Katie, you're not aware of this because I didn't send this to you, but just last night, there was another News Nation interview with another guy who claimed that he was contacted and abducted by mantis aliens, which were operating on him and told him that the body is just a container for the soul. And then they started like eating his cheek. But he really just had sleep paralysis.
He did. That was the symptoms.
I feel really bad for the dude because like that's very clearly what happened. He was talking about being trapped on the table and couldn't move, and there were these things over top of like his classic sleep paralysis. But yeah, I mean, he ended up on News Nation talking about it. So
I've had sleep paralysis once in my life, and it is very odd feeling.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it was like, the middle of the day. I was in college. I took a nap and woke up. But people really just want to believe weird things are happening to them, I think. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Loneliness, wanting attention, active imaginations. I'm not sure. But sleep paralysis, I feel like, is a relatively well-known thing. And a lot of people seem to mistake it for alien abduction and all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm. I have a theory. We had World War II. And we went into World War II, and when I say we, I mean kind of the like Western collective, right? Went into World War II as something of a God-fearing people. We were still relatively religious. We went to church. We did all these things. And then you had this catastrophic event that left a lot of people questioning their faith because how could we live in this world where these sorts of things happen if God is allowing these things to happen? Like that does not compute with them anymore. And so we had this time where people were questing for something that could explain this emptiness, this hollowness that they had without religion. And I think that started to be replaced by aliens. I mean, even if you look at Jake Barber's interview, he talks a little bit about how I have the quote, "I felt like something connected with me. I felt like something had tuned into me and my soul and was providing some sense of guidance on what to do and how profound it was." He calls it a feminine energy. He says it felt like the spirit of God, not in a masculine sense. Like it seems like he's questing for that feeling that church gives you, but maybe as an atheist, maybe as or at least as somebody who's like, I don't understand what this is. So he's trying to fill that void. There was a time when that void was filled with angels and demons. And now I think we're filling it more with aliens and extraterrestrials and maybe ultra-terrestrials, whatever.
And so you're saying because it's on the forefront of our minds when we do experience sleep paralysis, those of us who are kind of looking to the skies and thinking about these things, we're going to see aliens opposed to demons, angels, things like that.
Yeah, and 400 years ago it was a succubus, right?
Yeah. I think we want two things. I think we want answers, and we want them easy, and we want to feel like we are important in the universe. And I think that the idea of aliens and alien abduction and aliens visiting us gives us that.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. That's a lot of when you talk about these visitations and things, and also people who come out and claim, to be psychic mediums or something like that. It makes you feel special. It makes you feel like, oh, the aliens came to me because I am so important. They contacted me to give me this very particular message that only I can deliver. Yeah, it makes you feel like you're significant.
Yeah.
Those people could also find existentialism and realize none of us are significant. We're all just born alone and we'll die alone. And we have some fun times along the way. But maybe that's a little too nihilistic.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I don't mean it to be nihilistic. I think it's actually quite awe-inspiring to realize how small we are in the face of space and the entirety of the universe.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just me.
No, I agree, Katie. I think it's quite nice, and it's a little bit relaxing. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if we're going to move on from this.
We probably should eventually.
Okay, but before we move on,
Yeah.
according to the internet, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence is known also as the Sagan standard.
Oh,
So
Carl
Carl
Sagan. That
Sagan
makes
said
sense.
it.
Okay. That makes perfect sense.
Yes, that's where I've heard that recently because I've been reading books about space and
cool.
science. So yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we had a UK big cats making another appearance this month. It's kind of a follow-up. We've been following this story for a little while. But according to the BBC, 2 adult lynxes were spotted in the Scottish Highlands. And here we go. I'm going to try to pronounce Scottish words, so buckle up. The sighting was in Drumgeesh area near Kingsugi, the northern edge of the Cairngorms National Park. I apologize to all our Scottish listeners.
I have no idea.
We do have UK Scottish listeners.
We do, and I'm sorry to all of you.
Very sorry.
These 2 lynxes were nicknamed the Killahunty 2.
Aw.
Killahunty 2.
Yeah.
And they were humanely trapped and taken to the Highland Wildlife Park, where it seems like they're healthy, and they're going to be transferred to the Edinburgh Zoo.
I didn't see this in the article, so maybe because I think this article was from a few days prior, but they found 2 more.
They spotted 2 more there. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And captured them, but one of those died actually. They're not sure from what. I think they were doing an autopsy. So
it could be that people are trying to release them into, like, owners are trying to release them, thinking they're going to come back into the wild because they used to live there natively, right?
Yeah,
and now they don't.
We don't really know where they came from.
Yeah.
We've been following this, like I said, for a while. There were lynxes living in the UK at one point, but they've been extinct for about 500 years due to human population presence on their habitat and all the issues that come with that. But they still pop up from time to time. So in 1903, there was a Canadian lynx that was captured and showed no signs of living in captivity prior to that capture.
Wow.
And then in 1980, there was a puma captured in Scotland. And in 2001, a Eurasian lynx nicknamed the Beast of Barnet was captured after it tried to chase some kids on a playground.
Oh, wow.
And there was, of course, the Beast of Exmoor in the 1960s, which was a very famous case of people seeing a big cat in the UK. The question is really, are they still surviving? Like, they were not all killed off. Were there still some that were able to survive this long? Or are they animals that were reintroduced back into the wild? Is it a combination of both? We don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't the article say that there are 2 lynxes that are living in the Highlands because they've been reintroduced by people who know what they're doing?
Yeah, so there's a big cat conservancy in the UK that is actively trying to reintroduce them slowly and, in the right process and all of that. There was a period of time in, I believe, the end of the 1960s where exotic animal possession was outlawed. And so, of course, what happened is a lot of people, rather than surrender their animals, just release them into the wild. And those animals might have continued to live and form breeding populations. They might have died out. We don't really know. Mm-hmm. It's a big question mark because, of course, nobody's going to come forward and say, oh, yeah, I had a puma and I let it go.
That would explain the Canadian lynx that showed no prior signs of captivity, because that could have been, the parents could have been captive, let out, had a baby lynx.
Right.
And they died, but the lynx was found.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's super strange that there was a Canadian lynx in the UK.
That makes no sense.
It doesn't make sense.
It's really wild. The part of it that really gets me is that they haven't said that they were previously in captivity, but that seems the most likely explanation, right? Is that someone either rescued them from captivity and let them go, some sort of animal rights activist, or someone who had them decided they didn't want them anymore and let them go into the wild. I don't know. But I don't comprehend why people want to own wild animals. It's such a disrespect for the animal. It's for this thing that you claim to love, but maybe that's not the impetus. I mean, it's probably much more selfish than loving the animal.
Mm-hmm.
Have you watched Chimp Crazy?
No. Do I want to?
I mean, I don't know, but the thing that I took away from Chimp Crazy, because this is the people that own chimpanzees, and they're a unique breed of individual, and there are these women that own chimpanzees who treat them like children, and they are sort of a child that can never grow up, is never going to, say, I hate you because I'm a teenager now or whatever. They might bite your face off, but there's this almost unconditional love that they think comes with it, with owning that animal. And I think they just look past the danger and the fact that you're doing them a complete disservice because you keep them in a cage that's the size of a room. They put chimps in diapers. It's crazy, dude, what people do. It's
a very hard documentary to watch, but it's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen in my entire life.
Agreed.
And B, it's uplifting. I'm just going to say that it is an uplifting. It has a lot of down sadness, but it is an uplifting in the end. I think you'll be satisfied.
Okay.
In the end.
I'll add it to the list. The running list of documentaries I have. But
I know, right? Add it.
I will. But that actually sounds... I was thinking about what you were saying, Matt, and that makes sense, because it's the unconditional love that you might get from a dog or a cat or some sort of more traditional domesticated animal. But obviously, monkeys, chimpanzees, apes, they are much more human. So it's the closest thing you can get to having a human unconditionally love you without having to do the work of, what it takes for a human relationship. I mean, I don't know that I believe in unconditional love between human beings, but perhaps it exists. They say it exists between parents and children, but...
Yeah, that's a whole other topic.
But I do think, people would buy a baby lynx and they would think, oh, what a cute little kitten. And then it grows up and they're like, what the hell did I just do? And so, I think people also have a lot of pride and they don't want to admit when they're wrong. It's a lot easier to open the back door and to just let the lynx out and say, well, you'll be okay.
Well, and, you're going to get fined.
Yeah.
If you try to do it through the proper channels, they are going to fine you,
Yeah.
Because it's not legal. Anyway, we'll continue to keep an eye on this story. There's a lot of wild news this time.
Yeah.
This month. There's been a lot of wild news. This was sent to me by a listener. And NPR reports that 2 men were found dead while looking for Sasquatch over the Christmas holiday in Washington. They were reported missing on Christmas Eve and finally found on December 27th and had died due to exposure during the cold weather.
Man, and right around the holidays, that's so sad.
I know.
You all are kinder than I am. I mean, I feel bad. It's sad. It's, of course, sad that 2 people lost their lives. It's sad that it happened around the holidays. I mean, I can't imagine their families and it said they were in their 50s and late 40s. So part of me was thinking were these men related and they had gone out together and their family's expecting them home Christmas Eve of all days and then they don't come back and that's awful. All of that is an awful situation. But there's another part of me that is be fucking careful out there, people. Like, what are you doing? And
Yeah.
it sounds to me, I'm making assumptions, if you're out looking for Bigfoot, this is probably something you've done in the past or that you've been thinking about doing for a while if you made a trip out of it. So I don't know, like, have a jacket. It said they probably died of exposure because it was too cold and they were ill prepared. There's just a part of me that is confused about how you get in that situation. Read a weather forecast, pack a jacket, you know, like pack things to make. I don't know. I just don't, I'm just a little bit confused. Like, and perhaps they intended to go back to the car and they got lost. I mean, lots of things could have happened, but I just, that is frustrating because the second piece of it that I was sad about is the giant manhunt that had to happen in dangerous conditions to look for these two men. And it just made me think about when I went to the Grand Canyon, I read a book called Death in the Canyon. They have it in the gift shops. It's super fascinating, but I don't recommend it if you want to get close to the edge and look at things, because you will not after reading Death in the Canyon, because lots of people fall over the edge. And one of the things they actually actively say in the book is, trigger warning, I'm going to talk about suicide here, but if you are considering committing suicide, please do not do it here because it is extremely dangerous for all of the people who then go have to recover your body. And
wow.
Yeah, it just made me think of that. Like, people, if you want to go out into the woods in uncertain conditions, please just consider all the people that might have to come looking for you, because those people then have to put themselves in danger. And that's what I was thinking. That is my message to Bigfoot hunters. Please just prepare yourself for the elements and don't go too crazy out there.
Yeah, that's such a good point, really. I mean, it is. And you know, a lot of the times it's let people know exactly where you're going, let people know where you are and when you expect to be back. And you know, maybe they did, and maybe they just got way, way off course. But yeah, a lot of the times the people that are rescuing you are really in danger. You're putting them in the exact conditions that the people died in any instance. So good point.
I also want to point out that I don't believe they were hunting Bigfoot, like, to harm Bigfoot. But the county that they were hunting in, Skamania County, refers to itself as a Bigfoot refuge. And there's a law against harming Bigfoot in that county that carries a $1,000 fine and potential jail time.
Okay. What?
Yeah.
Okay, now you're just asking for people to go get lost in the woods. You're just like begging for people to do this.
Well, no,
now.
you shouldn't, because you'll be fined.
It's just encouraging this behavior to go wandering into the woods when you don't really know where you're going.
Because you're legitimizing Bigfoot. They're basically saying they're tacitly saying we think Bigfoot exists because we're saying that if you harm Bigfoot, we will fine you and potentially jail you.
Right.
That is crazy.
I also found out that it's legal to hunt Bigfoot in Texas. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Although I will say that I learned this on Southwestern Style Sweet Teas, which was a Sasquatch apparel company.
Oh, I love that. But you know what I want to say? This is a Miracle on 34th Street kind of court case winning law, because at the end of Miracle on 34th Street, when they bring all the letters addressed to Santa, and the federal judge the judge who's trying to get reelected doesn't want to say there's no Santa Claus at Christmas, and he's like, well, if the U.S. Postal Service says it's so, who am I to disagree with the federal government? And I feel like you could say that now about Bigfoot. You could be like, well, if the county government says that Bigfoot exists and that they'll fine you if you harm him, who am I to disagree?
Yes, they've made it very official.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
There are no specific laws in Oregon or California. So it's a gray area whether you can hunt Bigfoot in Oregon and California. Those are the only states I could find any reference to. I don't know. I don't know about Pennsylvania, so be careful. Katie, Virginia, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know that I would risk it.
I appreciate the effort of looking up state laws about Sasquatch.
This is my job. This is what I do.
Well, I know Katie likes to spend her weekends not reading, the New Yorker or, thoughtful news. No, she goes into the woods and she hunts Bigfoot.
Yeah,
so it's good
pulling
to
you
know.
away from the salon politico. Get out of that.
Get out of
I
that. Yeah, she doesn't bother with that.
truly appreciate that you think that that's what I'm reading on the weekends. I cannot remember the last time I've read anything in the New Yorker.
I honestly can't either.
Nor
been a long
Salon,
time.
nor Politico.
I have been reading some Politico lately, though. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're
off
running
the
away
rails.
again.
Well, I wanted to say, to get us back to Bigfoot, and then maybe
Yes.
we can move on to the next topic, is I think it would actually be, given those laws about Bigfoot, I think it would be cool to find out what other states have laws on the books about cryptozoology, aliens, conspiracy theories, like something like that. Like what legal code exists that's actually speaking to some of these things that like not everyone actually agrees exist at all. I think it would be super fascinating.
There's got to be something in New Mexico about aliens, right?
Oh, probably.
There's got to be.
Nevada, probably.
Harry
Yeah,
Reid
about
was
it,
like
yeah.
hugely
Oh,
into
yeah.
that.
Yeah, so speaking of people hunting Bigfoot and the repercussions of that, there was a man he was a Sasquatch hunter, and while he was trying to track down the Sasquatch, it seems like it might have turned against him because he is now going to court over it and he has lost. So this came to us from CTV News. And this is a brand new news article. This was a very last minute addition for us. But it says, a man's ongoing efforts to track down the elusive Sasquatch in remote areas of British Columbia suggest he's capable of working and therefore not entitled to spousal support. So basically, he was going through a divorce and he claimed that he had been injured on a Sasquatch hunt, that he had fallen down some stairs and he was no longer able to work and he was no longer able to supply his wife with any income. Mm-hmm. But he was still going out on Sasquatch hunts in the wilderness and he was camping and he was hiking and things like that. And so his wife brought this case to court and said he's got to pay up. And the judge ruled in her favor and said that since he is hunting Sasquatch, and since he is out in the wilderness, he has to pay her.
I never really imagined Sasquatch would end up in an actual court trial.
There was, a couple of months ago, there was a guy who shot his friend and claimed that he thought his friend was Bigfoot. Was calling Bigfoot.
Yeah, that actually is true.
I think that involved meth.
Yes, I think that was some drug-related incident.
Back to people's stupidity. The fact
Yeah.
that
Oh,
you
yeah.
say you can't work, but you're able to go hiking in the woods, which is way more effort than most desk jobs take or require.
Oh, yes. Yes.
The judge in this case said, quote, the claimant continues to enjoy camping, fishing, hunting, riding quad motorcycles, and exploring remote areas of the British Columbia in search of Sasquatch.
And I gotta say, man, British Columbia, that is a rough place.
It is.
It's cold, it's unforgiving.
You're not walking on pre-made paths through some national park.
No,
Right.
not at all.
Right.
No.
And I mean, even national parks are dicey. You step off the trail and people get lost all the time. And it's like, but man, this guy is he's an adventurer. He's a regular Josh Gates, this guy.
Yeah. He also, I love this too. Because the more I learn about this guy, the more I know exactly who this guy is, right? He, quote, made it clear that he rates his own intellectual abilities to be far above average. But he still didn't get a job since 2016.
Well, Well, he's holding out for a management position.
I know, right? He's like the dude from Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, all of these jobs are below me. I'm too intelligent.
you know-
So he spent his time looking for Sasquatch.
I like this guy. I like his energy, and I also like his wife, his ex-wife. She's got to be like, no, buddy. You're definitely able to do stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm taking you to court. I like her energy too. But I gotta say, this guy, he could start his own Bigfoot hunting show.
I'm surprised he doesn't have one already, honestly.
He can find his way around remote British Columbia. I mean, we need people like this.
It's called
We need
YouTube, dude.
entertainment.
You can do it all by your lonesome. You don't need a production company
That's
to
true.
sign
Yeah, that's
you.
true. That's very true. Yeah.
Yep.
And honestly, I mean, you start a YouTube channel where you're wandering around British Columbia hunting Bigfoot. There's like a coin flip chance that Travel Channel is going to come to you anyway, or History Channel is going to come to you anyway and be like, hey, we'll buy this. So we have programming to put on in doctors' offices.
Yes.
Even if it's only for 1 or 2 seasons.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Well, Finding Bigfoot ran for like 11 seasons or something, too.
I don't really get
Yeah.
into those ones as much as the paranormal ones.
I understand.
Finding Bigfoot was very much like if you had seen one, you had seen them all. Because at least with the paranormal stuff, when you go to a location, they can talk about the history of the location and stuff, and that's really cool. But the Bigfoot, they're always like, we're in the woods again.
It's very
just kinda
formulaic.
that.
Like they have a town meeting, the townspeople come, they talk about how tall the Bigfoot is, and
Yeah.
then Renee says something pseudoscientific.
Oh, yeah. Renee was the token skeptic, and she
yeah.
was always like, oh, I
Not
don't think it's a
skeptical at all.
Bigfoot.
And then you had Bobo who would make the noises. He would make the Bigfoot noises.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. You had your like staples every episode of what had to happen. You could almost play bingo. And it was like, fine, but we need another Bigfoot show to fill the gap. So, maybe this guy's got some kind of future. He can support himself that way.
Pay off the $350,000 that he has to pay his wife.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, yeah, allegedly there is some kind of ape running around Cambridge. Witnesses have been seeing it since October and have described it as a, quote, monkey running on all fours. The first sighting was October 27th, where a witness said, cycling down Arbory Road last night around midnight, me and a friend both saw an ape-like creature, quite a bit shorter than a normal man, hair and long arms. At first, he was standing on back legs by the side of the road, but then he ran on all fours into a field next to Meadows Community Center. And so immediately, this is October 27th, right? Halloween prank. Like that's what everybody assumed. Which is why it's strange that they saw it again in December and the sightings have continued. I don't know if it's like somebody who's just absolutely in love with their Halloween costume. I don't know if maybe there are some furries on campus that are having, they're enjoying themselves
lives.
out in the public, you know? But yeah, they all happen at night. All these sightings have happened at night. Witnesses can't really get good pictures of the creature because of that. And one of the witnesses described themselves as, quote, depressingly sober. So I don't think that it has anything to do with drugs or alcohol.
Yeah. My favorite part of the article is the insanely bad pictures that are hilarious.
I wrote down the caption under the first picture because I was just cracked me up, that article starting off, what we think witnesses saw. And it's just the worst photoshopped, like, gorilla man into a picture from Cambridge that you could possibly have.
Yeah, I think it was like, and then I think another one was like, not real photo or something. It's like, yeah, we know. It's okay.
Yeah. There's one where it's like looking down a street and you see it actually looks like the Sasquatch is kind of hopscotching onto the sidewalk from the road, and it says Bigfoot is our addition. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like just to make sure,
exactly.
just to make sure that no one was like, oh, whoa, this is a real picture.
They captured it.
They captured its essence beautifully. I mean, so wild. Okay, so my first thought actually was, given the stories about the lynxes and also in the US, all of those monkeys escaped that lab and were like running around.
That's
and as
right.
far as I know, they like still haven't caught all of them. No one's followed up on it in a while, but I know that it had been a couple weeks and they hadn't caught all of them. So I was just wondering, does someone in Cambridge have a monkey? A big monkey, like a gorilla or something like that? Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility in a university town that there's a monkey somewhere, legally or not, though you'd think that if it was in a lab or something like that, someone would have mentioned that it had gone missing. But I don't know. That was my first thought, is that like these people are seeing a actual monkey, because the way that they describe it, they're not describing like a Bigfoot. It sounds like they're describing like, I saw a giant monkey and that is weird. Why is there a monkey here? So that was my first thought, is that these people are crazy, but somehow Cambridge has not figured out that they have a giant monkey wandering around. I don't know how that would happen either. So now I'm lost and I'm back to square one. But
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Was my first thought too. And I think, maybe they need to look around and see who keeps monkeys in the area. Who do they know? Who's got the licenses for a monkey?
Or not.
Or,
yeah.
if they don't, then you don't know.
Let's talk about chimp crazy again, right? Like,
right. But some people do. Like, so for example, growing up up the road from me, there was a family that had all kinds of animals. I think they were certified like animal, I don't know, vets. I think might have been a vet clinic. I don't think they were a vet clinic, but they were like they boarded animals, I think, or something. It was very vague. Anyway, I think they had a monkey, and the monkey got loose. So it's very,
Did they find the monkey again?
yes.
Okay.
They found the monkey. It was
All right.
a small monkey, but like my first thought is, okay, yeah, monkey got loose, because that was my experience growing up. Cambridge is a big town. My town was very small. We knew who had monkeys in my town, pretty much. But I guess not in Cambridge, because
I'm sorry. It's just like, this is a small town. We know who's got the monkeys here. Like,
I also lived in a small town. If anyone had a monkey, I didn't know about it.
you didn't know, Katie? You didn't just intuitively know who had the monkeys in your town?
No.
wow. We had an updated bulletin board every day.
But the thing that humored me the most was the drawings by the news agency.
That's amazing.
really just felt this was totally explainable. So I really would actually love a follow-up.
Yes, me too. I think the story is kind of like whatever. Okay, there's definitely a monkey loose somewhere, but the real story is these like AI or whatever drawings. They're not even AI.
They are not AI. They are some intern. They were like, you got to put a monkey in this picture, and the intern was like, I once looked at Photoshop in college, and they're like, that's perfect. Just do it.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to shout out and applause whoever did these to the intern, whoever did these, because these are excellent.
Wonderfully done.
And
the
put
captions.
a smile on my face.
The person who wrote the captions, the first caption, vaguely serious. This is what we think witnesses saw. The second caption, completely not serious. We put Sasquatch in here. Sorry.
If you created these images, I'd love to put them on some Slaying Monsters merchandise. Reach out to us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com. I was trying to figure out if this was possibly a marketing ploy for the new Robbie Williams movie.
Oh my God! Don't even.
Oh, Katie, you don't know about this movie?
No, of course. We talked about this last time.
Yeah,
I don't know
pay
anything
attention to any
about
of this shit.
Katie's safe
Do
against
you
this
know who
movie.
Robbie Williams is?
Yes, I know who Robbie Williams is.
There is a biopic about his life, but he is played by a CGI monkey.
Okay, I didn't hear that he was played by a CGI monkey. I heard there was like a biopic of his life coming out.
Yeah, he's a monkey for some reason.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yeah, well, moving from Bigfoot, now let's talk smaller foot. And the search for a human ancestor that might not be as extinct as it seems. So I saw this in Popular Mechanics. I thought this was really cool. It's a tiny ape-like humanoid may still be living in plain sight. Now, this is specifically the Flores Island of Indonesia, where retired Professor Gregory Forth believes that the ancient hominid Homo floresiensis is still alive. And Forth has been studying Homo floresiensis for 40 years. This was one of the last ancestors of humans and died out around the same time that Homo sapiens began really thriving. Scientists actually nicknamed them hobbits because that's essentially what they are. They stand about 3.5 feet tall, weigh about 50 pounds, and have a remarkably small brain. But despite that, they used stone tools, they likely butchered their kills, and they could make fire. Now this is Flores on the southern end of Indonesia, where they had found bones and tools since like the 1950s. But the milestone discovery happened in 2003 when there was a cave excavation that revealed the first full skeleton of Homo floresiensis, along with some stone tools. And now we're talking about this specifically on Slaying Monsters because the locals there refer to a reclusive humanoid that is occasionally seen. They call it the Laihoa or the Ibu Gogo. And they're described as short, long-haired, pot-bellied with long arms and fingers. Forth believes that these stories are actually describing a surviving population of Homo floresiensis, which would be a huge discovery for anthropology if it's true, right? There is actually a living group of smaller stature families called the Rampasasa living in Indonesia. But the Rampasasa don't share any genetics with Homo floresiensis, which means that they didn't descend from that branch. So whatever these small humanoids are that they're seeing there, it's a mystery. We don't know what they are.
I loved this story because I actually think that it's totally possible that they could still be living there, especially on small isolated islands. Animals exist and that don't exist anywhere else. And I don't know this island, but I imagine that it's not probably densely populated. I'm sure that there's lots of forests and things like that. I think it's totally possible. And I think it would be really cool if that were true.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was awesome. I would love that if this were true. I was reading. I want to read more about Gregory Forth, and he actually wrote an article in *Sapiens* about his experience living on that island for many years, coming back and forth, studying it. He studied it from a very anthropological standpoint, where he interviewed the people that lived there, and he got a little bit more information about their own belief systems and how that influences what they see. And, this is a quote from the article, but educated Florinese Catholics, including Indonesian priests, are openly critical of Darwinian evolution, and ordinary Leo villagers are barely aware of it. So they don't doubt that the existence is low. They don't know anything about the existence. And they don't know about the history of Homo floresiensis, really. So, and yet they're describing it really well. So those that don't have anything to gain from it, like the sorcerers and the magicians there that could have some monetary gain by saying that it's there, the everyday people that live there that are perfectly expressing its characteristics, that's something he really does take into account quite seriously.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you talk to these local native people, and the guy down the street is like, yeah, I saw one. I 100%. Yeah, I saw it. I believe it's there. I can describe it exactly the way it is. It's fascinating. I do think that this is one of the more credible cryptids, I suppose. If we're going to try to classify it somewhere. That we've talked about, but more than, say, a plesiosaur living in Loch Ness or something like that.
Yeah, and we do have to be aware of the fact that witness accounts are very flawed.
Sure.
And somebody might ask, well, what the hell is the difference between this and people that see Bigfoot? But I think that if we're talking from an evolutionary standpoint and from look, this is a small island. There's not a lot of places where people can go from here. It's very isolated. I think that it's very likely that there could be something hidden in the woods there, a population that we haven't experienced yet. There's a A, B, C, D, that like you can follow the evolution and you can say, yeah, this is likely. But when it comes to Bigfoot, I don't really see much of a path.
Right. Because
Scientifically?
there's a bunch of leaps you have to make,
Yeah.
right? You know, generally speaking, when we're talking about humanoid ancestors, like Homo sapien ancestors, we're smaller, we're not bigger.
Yeah.
Sasquatch is a bigger animal, you know, and we don't really have a fossil history of humanoids in the Pacific Northwest that bear any resemblance to what Sasquatch is there. Right. Or what we claim Sasquatch looks like there. But here we're talking about something where we have a distinct fossil record that matches everything that the people are saying. We're just assuming that it died out at a certain point, and they're saying, no, it didn't. We still see it.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah. And I think also we see populations of animals. There are animals that are extremely rare on the face of the earth. We know they exist, but they're really hard to find. This is an old reference at this point, but all of the hubbub around the snow leopard, I want to say, on the BBC Planet Earth, because nobody ever sees them. And that photographer had to lay there for like weeks to capture the snow leopard finally going by, you know? And I think that there are also, we still discover new species. So I think that it's very possible that something that we know existed in the scientific record still exists. It's just that nobody has seen it or people have seen it, but there's been no maybe like photographic evidence. Also, if they're using stone tools, making fires, butchering animals, those are things that Homo sapiens do. So there could be evidence of them that people are mistaking for someone was out here camping. And it was, but it just wasn't a Homo sapien. It was...
That's
so true.
That's a great point, actually. Yeah, how much of that fossil record are we possibly conflating with Homo sapiens when we shouldn't be?
Yeah.
You know? And then to your point about the animals that are rarely seen, last month, right, we talked about the spade-toothed whale, where they had only found 7 of them in the wild so far, but we had kind of known about them since the 1800s. You know, like, that's a perfect example of something where it's remote. You see them sometimes. There's reports happen now and then, but they're just not that frequent enough. So it's really fascinating. I know that there was a video of some kids on dirt bikes from, I want to say that it was the early 2000s. That it was taken in Sumatra. So not this exact island, but also in Indonesia. And you see a small figure dart across the path. And a lot of people had said that was what a cryptid that they call the orang pendek down there, which is, again, one of these small scale humanoids, like 2 to 3 feet tall, 50 pounds, long hair, that sort of thing. And it makes me think about that. There was never any proof one way or the other for that video. That was just one of the, viral videos that you see pop up now and then. But it seems an awful lot in support of this population of Homo floresiensis. It's really fascinating. I have a soapbox moment to close us on. This was something that it came late and it wasn't crazy worth talking about, so I didn't share it with you guys. But there is a documentary that is coming out called The Age of Disclosure. Katie, I don't imagine that you know anything about this, what with you being disconnected from all media.
Good for you.
Good for you.
No, but this sounds interesting, so I might have to put it on the list.
So The Age of Disclosure, it's about to screen at South by Southwest in March. And it features interviews with all of our kind of heavy hitters from the UFO disclosure movement. We're talking about Lou Elizondo. We're talking about, I don't know if Russ Coulthart is in there, but Christopher Mellon is there. Just all the people that we see all the time. Gary Nolan, I'm sure, is going to show up. And there's a newcomer named Jay Stratton from the Office of Naval Intelligence who's kind of spearheaded this whole thing. But I feel like I need to talk about this because of the state of the world right now. and because it really impacted me when I watched the trailer for this movie. So my background is in magic, and watching this trailer is like watching a magic trick. It presupposes the idea that the US government has, and many, many governments, have been hiding non-human technology for decades. And this is allegedly backed up by authorities on this topic, like the people I've talked about, Christopher Mellon, Lou Elizondo. And they, among many, many other people, are talking at you throughout the trailer about how the government has alien shit and they're keeping it from you, and they know it because they are the experts. They keep telling you this. But that claim is the setup for the magic trick. It's a break in logic. Because they are asking you to believe them and to trust them, but they haven't given you any proof of the claims. It's just them sitting in chairs talking at you. This story, or at least this current disclosure movement, first broke in 2017, although the threads of it stretch all the way back to the end of World War II. But even if you take it from Leslie Kean and Robert Blumthal's New York Times article in 2017, all we've seen are 3 easily disproven videos on Tic Tacs. They claim that there is this vast conspiracy that spans nations, but they've never proven it. And I'm not talking about proving aliens and UFOs. That's a whole separate thing. I'm talking about proving the cover-up. They've never proven that the cover-up exists. It's not enough to say, trust me, over and over and over again. It's not enough to show me grainy videos of out-of-focus objects in the sky, and it's not enough to claim outrageous things like we are controlling them through psionically powered people like this is the fucking X-Men. So I want to offer a challenge to everyone involved in the Age of Disclosure doc and Skywalker HQ and the UAP Disclosure Fund and all the other dubious organizations that are circling this subject. Show me the proof. Show me the proof of the conspiracy. Because until you do that, you are the conspirators. And don't pretend that you're an expert on this subject. Lou Elizondo may have a decade of experience at the Department of Defense, but that doesn't make him an expert on UFOs and alien conspiracies. I have been entrenched in this topic for 30 years, long enough to hear the same talking points that this doc reiterates over and over and over again with no proof and no evidence. If you want proof of my authority on the Fortean, there are 70-some hours of this podcast that you can listen to. My insights are clear and they're supported by research, and I won't hide them behind a smokescreen. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where misinformation is at an all-time high. And this type of unsupported rhetoric, these unsubstantiated conspiracy theories, are eroding critical thinking and logical reasoning. And shame on South by Southwest for giving them a platform to pontificate from. It's disgusting, immoral, and it's why we're in the mess that we are currently in. They're pulling a magic trick on you. Do not fall for it. Thank you for humoring me for a moment. And now back to your regular programming.
I don't think we're humoring you. I think that making a documentary without laying out the case of why you're saying what you're saying, it's no longer a documentary. It's a pseudo-reality television show from Discovery or the Travel Channel, or that they made into a full-length movie.
You're absolutely correct. Yeah, you're absolutely correct on that, Katie.
And, South by Southwest is cool and hip, and that legitimizes it.
Yeah, it gives them a platform. Because it's not, you're not releasing it through News Nation, which is a dubious news source to begin with. I mean, when you go onto News Nation's website, I don't know if you experienced this, the two of you, but you get a little pop-up that's like messages from God or something like that. Did you see this?
No.
Oh yeah. It's like get faith in your inbox or something like that. Yeah, it's crazy.
Lord.
But like, it's not that. It's a legitimate source. It's the same as when the New York Times broke this in 2017. There's legitimacy that's being delivered to this, and it's dangerous.
It's a good point, and I appreciate it. I mean,
show me the proof, because people sitting around and saying they're hiding things from you doesn't do us any good. Show me the proof.
No, and we've already seen how dangerous that is.
Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for being along on this ride. We're here. We're in 2025. This has officially been... We've broken 2 years of slaying monsters. This is the start of our 3rd year. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
So as always, if you see things in the news, you want to send them to us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com. Drop us a line. We might talk about it on the show.
And I'd like to leave everybody with a quote.
Please do.
Today. Maya Angelou said, "When people show you who they are, believe them the first time."
Love it. It's just good words to live by in this reality that we're in.
You know what other good words are to live by?
What's that?
Fuck Nazis.
Fuck Nazis.
Yep.
All right, 2025.
All right,
here we are.
2025. Let's get it. Awesome.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Be safe out there. Thanks for listening to Slaying Monsters, the Fortean History Podcast. If you like the podcast, there's a couple ways you can show your support. You can tell your friends, you can leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform, or you can head over to slayingmonsterspodcast.com and click on the Support Us button to leave a donation. For questions, suggestions, and other feedback, reach out to us, slayingmonsterspodcast@gmail.com, and stay up to date by following us on socials @slayingmonsterspodcast. Your support helps us grow, and we are truly grateful to have our listeners and community.